What's up, guys? So today I've got a couple of clips for you guys of the 3's games that I played this weekend. So we tried to push from I think it was 2640 when I left. Like that was our last time we queued, and then our goal for the weekend was to push to 2800, and we are safely 2800 now, rank 139, which is super cool. Did really well this week. We went 25 and 41, and I think generally like we did pretty well in most of our 3's games. We went pretty good, pretty good. I think on all of them. The things I wanted to talk about today in this session are a few comps that I haven't been showing yet. One of them will be Warrior DH Druid, which is like kind of a rare comp, right? But like Warrior DH is still seems to be pretty good. Like it doesn't actually seem to be too bad. We're gonna look at some games against Turbo. We're going to look at one that we beat and then one that we lost, which I'll show at the end. I like the habit of just getting into games that we lose rather than just the ones we win. And then, we'll feature some other games there. I think I want to show a Shadowplay game first. The Shadowplay game is really interesting because I feel like it's a comp that a lot of warriors struggle against, like Affilocks, Shadow Priests. It's really easy to get pulled out of position, um, which is sort of why I feel like it's a really easy, quick explainer on how you should play against that comp. I guess the big thing I want to flag is that a lot of the talent choices and some of the decisions I make in the queues, right, will be different to what you might make, right? Mainly because I'm playing Warrior Mage Hpal, and you might be playing Turbo, you might be playing, Warrior SP, but the general idea and game sense decision making should be the same. On a quick side note, thanks for all the support. Have had a whole bunch of people follow the stream, which is really really cool. Um, and if you're keen to watch the games in real time, I try and stream most of my 3's pushes and some of my 2 stuff as well. I've been leveling a Windwalker on Horde side, so if there's any healers that wanna play and mess around in 2's on that, hit me up. We'll be streaming more and more as time goes on. We're really trying to push rank 1 this season, so you know, we're we're playing a lot and we're playing at quite high ratings, so I think it's quite informative to hear it. And because we're not like seriously competing or anything, I can just go over like all of our strategies against most comps, and then sort of the mistakes that we've made in each of them too. Anyway, guys, really appreciate the follows, the subs, and the likes, comments. Even if you have something that you take issue with or something I didn't explain properly, please let me know. Again, if you have any VODs you want me to review of your own Warrior gameplay, or even like other classes as well, I don't know why you might be watching, but if you are, like, I'm happy to always look through them. So we'll get into the first clip now, which is against Shadowplay. All right, jumping into the first clip, Shadowplay. Apologies for half the screen being taken by that. Um, was just messing around with what covenants I was running. I was running a Mortal Combo here and the Crash the Ramparts double potency conduits. And I think it was Banner, Shout, and Sharpen. I run Sharpen here because it's a Holy Pally and it's a Shadow Priest, so there's a lot of like self heals. And we have Shadow Resistance Aura, so we're really, really favored. We do pretty well against this. So the moment we walk in, my idea here is to just hit whoever's closer, right? I don't want to push in too far, and I don't want to chase the SP around. What I see here is um, WizK goes deep, right? And my Paladin hodges him. What I do is I've also bannered the Disorient, right? So the Disorient was really short. The Paladin hodges him straight away. I also Stormbolt, which is something that we miscommunicated. But it's all good. WizK is really deep here, so he's a really good target. And if you see on the right-hand screen on Gladius, my mage is DB'd both the Holy Pally and the Affy, so it's sort of like a 3v1 at the moment. So we're just wailing away on him. He gets a Fear off here, which is also bannered. No one killed the banner there. And we start kind of pushing pretty aggressively here. I just commit the Blade Storm so I can keep uptime and I can't get like coiled or DB off. And unfortunately, I speared while I was leaping, so I speared into a wall. But we have really good pressure here. We force the VE out, and as you can see, what happens is now WizK is back. He doesn't have any cooldowns, right? But the Affy lock is trying to get between my team, right? Me and the mage and the Hpal. So what we immediately try and do is we swap onto the Affilock. So essentially there's a bit of a wall and he can't just stand on top of my Affilock and spam fears, right? So pumping away, he drops down. So we immediately swap onto WizK, right? We're pumping him down. I get a fear here, which is about, I think he's running relent. So yeah, it was a full fear, but just relented. And we're getting decent damage here. The Mind Games is coming out now, and I missed the kick. I get hodged here, and I trinket the hodge because I have UA, I think, or I had UA at the time. And my Paladin has to run and live. So my Paladin's under a lot of pressure here, but he's quite far away from everything, so they're not going to really be able to chase and kill him. And we're just pumping out damage here, and we get the sack and disperse, right? Like, I think he was worried that one of them wouldn't go off and save him. I throw a stun on the Affilock so he can't stand that close. And what I try and do here is I'm still wailing away because he literally has no buttons. And my mage is in this position that's hard for them to deal with because they're so pushed up and the paladin has no outs out of the next poly. So if you see what's happening, my mage is just boxing out the Holy Pally while I'm wailing away at the Shadow Priest. And here, like, although the Affilock's a little bit ahead, it's clearly the kill target is the Shadow Priest because he doesn't have too much. Okay. He MDs out really quickly, which is good, but he gets his Bob stolen instantly, which is really unlucky for him, but very lucky for us. And you'll see that kind of even out across games anyway. He has Fade, so I throw the banner down here. It's kind of a bit meh. I almost do it more offensively, so my Shadow Priest can't get feared and like CC'd. But you know, it does open us up to stuff later. I commit the Bladestorm here, mainly just so I can keep uptime, and I can remove that like corruption slow when he banners. We do good damage here. I keep pumping away, and essentially that poly lands right a couple seconds ago, and there's absolutely no outs for the Holy Pally. So you can see sort of you can put a lot of pressure if you just go whoever's closer. And honestly, these are like I think the Affilock and the SP they all did well, but they're very unfavored in this comp. Like we are so favored because of Banner, Rally, Shadow Resistance Aura, um, warrior damage and mortal strike, and just like the ability for the mage to just go deep with shields and just play super aggressive on top of them. And they can't really focus the mage because the mage can always just double blink away. So that's how I think you should probably play against Shadowplay. Regardless of your comp, I don't think you should really focus the Affy like as much as you do. But if the Affy's trying to get between you and the healer, you need to give it respect and you need to stop those fears on your healer, or the game's going to go downhill really quickly because it'll quickly turn into a 3v2. And usually, what you'll find if you're losing to Shadowplays a lot is that it's you and your DPS on one side on top of their team, right? Which is fine, it's a good position. But the Affilock would have like ported and is so far away from you guys that you're hitting the SP or you're hitting the healer, and the Affilock is literally just removing your Hpal from the game. And that means the Hpal usually has to use defensive cooldowns, right? So he doesn't die as he tries to get to you guys and heal you, which leaves him really open to a Mind Games UA Hodge type of go. So play kind of nearest caster, and I tend to find that works best with Shadowplay. Okay, here's another comp which I've seen way more of. It's like Hpal, Balance Druid, Shadow Priest. And oftentimes the Balance Druid will be swapped out with the Ellie, or maybe the Shadow Priest is swapped out with the Ellie, right? But it's kind of like this caster cleave. It's a new meta of caster cleave. We used to have Mage Lock all game, and there's still a couple of Mage Locks, but it seems like SP and like these tankier, more hybridy healers, um, DPS are really taking stance. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to be aggressive, right? I don't charge there because I know that they can kite me, right? There's abilities here. I don't want to be stuck in them, and because I had the mind games and all this other stuff on me, I trinketed the Hodge, right? I noticed that the Boomkin is on top of my page pal, who was like trying to run to us, right? He like got opened on at the start, and what I do is I leap and I throw the Stormbolt on the Boomkin. And now I want to hit the Boomkin because the Boomkin's overextended right on top of us. And if I let him stay there, the Boomkin's just going to spam Cyclone on my H-Pal, and the Holy Pally and SP are going to force every one of my cooldowns and probably a lot of the Paladin's cooldowns too. without the Balanced Druid even connecting yet. So I swap here, he's out of form, and what I do is I pull around the corner so the Shadow Priest can't hit me. My Paladin gets put into a stun, right? I threw the banner down, which, I was hoping to get the silence, but my mage got the Ring of Frost, which is good too. And as you can see, I'm sort of trying to like play a little defensive here. I'm in D stance. I Blade Storm here so I can stay on the target and try and get some cleave damage on both of them because I really actually want to hit the SP. The SP is a much better target than the Balanced Druid, but if you don't pay the Balanced Druid respect, he will just clone you the whole game. He Shadow Melds and Bops here. And I shatter the Bop here because my mage couldn't get it. He's in a Cyclone. Okay, point two, right? And a really important point. Again, we see the Boomkin push on top of my healer, which means that I'm looking at the Boomkin, I'm slowing the Boomkin, and if the Boomkin pushed any further, because my mage DB'd that that DB'd that clone, I stopped, but because the Boomkin's a better target right now, I went the Boomkin, right? Because I want him to be forced back, and I want the Hpal to kind of be constantly on his toes, trying to heal and avoid the polys, right? It's kind of really difficult for him to survive there. So eventually we get the full poly, but what you can see here is Incarn goes out, and the Shadow Priest is like primed to do big DPS. He's got Fade soon as well, and there's a full Root Beam, right? So on this, I instantly get D-Stance, right? And I get the sack. The sack's kind of important, but so is the D-Stance. Because if I didn't D-Stance this, the sack dot on my Hpal might be really, really high. Might have just one-shot him, right? I have the Mind Games. So the Mind Games on me, in my opinion, was one of their biggest misplays. If they held the Mind Games, forced the sack, and then Mind Games the Hpal right here, they might have just one-shot him. But they don't, and he gets a huge wings heal and tops himself without having to use too much more. So here I kick the Cyclone, I'm keeping pressure up on just whoever's closer, and I see the Shadow Priest is looking pretty juiced right now. If you look at what's happening, it looks kind of dire for us, right? Like we're getting pushed on top of, but their Hpal has no trinket, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't have sack either. And I'm getting all my cooldowns very soon. So I do a stun here, right? So one thing that you have to take note of, if you can, like, if you stun, they can't fade in that, right? Which usually means that you can predict that they're going to fade right out of the stun, right? Regardless if they trinket or not. The misplay I made here is it was pretty clearly this Shadow Priest trinket. So if I held the spear for a couple more seconds, I could have gotten full value spear and he wouldn't have been able to fade it. So I'm looking here as well because he's got silence soon, he's got stun soon, but we get this Hodge on the SP which forces disperse. It was really, really good. Even that DR'd one just because we had some cross CC and we have pressure out. I'm hitting the Boomkin right now, and the Boomkin thorns himself, which is awesome, right? Because if he thorned the SP on our go, it may have meant that I was taking a lot more pressure than I should. I get the big Blade Storm off there, and we've just had too much pressure that they fall over, right? So a lot of these kind of games in BFA are really swingy, and if you can survive their go and live against the Caster Cleave, they kind of run out of cooldowns if they're playing offensive, and if they're not playing offensive, you always have the mana win condition too. All right, so that's another Caster Cleave. I like featuring these Caster Cleaves because I feel like they're not as popular at lower ratings, and you're going to see a lot more melee cleave there. So for a lot of warriors who are, maybe moving towards the higher end of things, maybe you want to know what to do against these comps because I am always terrified of like Balanced Druid Shadow Priest, Balanced Druid Ellie. It's really scary because you can always die, you can always get swapped onto, and it's probably one of the only comps where you're like often a target, right? All right, on to the next game. So now we have a really popular comp, which is Turbocleave. Turbocleave is really difficult for a lot of caster warrior healer teams because they do insane damage, they live for a really long time, and it's not really clear what to do, between goes and stuff like that. So we jump into this game. We have the Enhancement Shaman here, and I always like to start the Enhancement Shaman and just try and get as much pressure on as possible with a spear, and like we get a combust here, right? So out of that, we instantly get sack. We get a lot of cooldowns, and now like they're playing offensive, but if you see their position, that sack's about to run out and is super out of position. I throw the intervene on the mage a few seconds ago just so he can live a bit longer. And throughout this, I'm kind of like trying to use Ignore Pain on cooldown where I can and sit D-stance because we're going to take a lot of cleave damage here if we don't do that. We get the full poly on the paladin. and they've super overextended. So I'm just still wailing away at this enhancement shaman who's chasing down our mage. The mage is still doing pretty well on healing, and my Hpal, my mage positioning is really nice, right? They're standing not too close to everything else, but in a position where you can't really easily get fears and hexes without compromising position. So here's a mistake I do here, in my opinion. I probably could have just swapped to the warrior instead of doing this kind of awkward go on the mage without anyone on the enhancement without anyone connecting. But it's still fine. Um, it's just like it would have been a more optimal play to swap there. Okay, I slow both here, and I'm just always trying to keep a really big slow, the piercing howl, when my mage is trying to kite, and if I can get two targets at once. I get the intervene out here on their go, and it's actually ending up not to do too much damage because I ignore pain on cooldown. The bop comes out. We bop our mage, which gets purged, unfortunately, and we poly the enhancement. I'm just hitting the warrior right now, so we can poly uh, the enhancement shaman here. And then this is ascendance, so we're really scared here. The warrior's taking a lot of damage, so he walls, right? And this is where it's a bit dicey. If you see this position, our Hpal just got feared in a kind of awkward position when he was hodging the pally. Our mage is like 45% HP, the warrior's full HP, the enhancement shaman has ascendance up for 6 seconds, right? So I throw the intervene and just try and fear that last go here. So the fear for the last 3 seconds kind of gives us a bit of space. One thing that I think is really good, a super good tip against enhancement shamans, is a lot of the times you can just hold your fear defensively, and the second they ascendance, just fear it, right? Because they can't tremor themselves. And if you're an enhancement shaman watching, um, that's probably one good place to throw a tremor down. Just throw a tremor down when you ascendance, because especially if the warrior hasn't feared yet. Because a lot of the times you can't get good fears against good enhancement shamans who can play positionally and work together with a healer. So we fear that there, and I throw the stun off. They overlap, intervene, and wall, right? And even though he intervenes, he left his enhancement shaman instantly, so it's not really doing anything. Uh, what I do here is I throw the spear down on the warrior. It should have been on both. It was just a mistake. Well, that wasn't a sick play or anything. The shaman's running away. I chase him down, right? Because I want to keep pressure up, and I'm in B stance here. And I reflect the hex because he's throwing a hex on me. And what I see them doing here is they start to play super, super defensive. So I hit D stance, and throughout this whole thing, I'm coordinating with my Hpal. Am I good? Am I not good? Etc. Etc. I don't want them to get a full reset because we got a lot out of them. And this Hpal, his trinket's coming up soon. Um, the shaman will have stuff soon. The warrior's gonna have stuff soon. He's gonna have disarm as well in like 30 seconds. So if we let them full reset, it's not good. I want to keep pressure on them. I want that extra win condition, which is mana, right? So I'm in D stance. I'm not too scared because I have parry. I have trinket parry file, which is usually enough to live anything from them. So I'm in D stance there. I'm spamming ignore pains as well, but the main thing is just to keep them so they can't get a free reset, and they kind of see that they would just get cleaved here too much, so they open up back onto the mage. So they're on the mage here, and I throw the intervene out, right? I think they've just sort of waited for that bloodlust, which is why they were behind the corner. And the warrior intervenes the enhancement shaman, and we're kind of scared here. He gets his full ring, which is really good, and there's no dispel for a couple seconds. So when that dispel comes out, yeah, it's still super, super awkward. We get the full poly on the paladin here, and I have stun coming up in a few seconds. He sacks, right? But I still have stun, and I have fear. What's it called? Sharpen. Stun spear, right? I do this huge blade storm on everything, which is sick. Just chunking away at everyone's HP. Really getting the mana out of this fucking Hpal here. And this Hex tries to go out. I intervene to my mage straight away so he can get this poly off, right? Because, what's it called? He can't get kicked by the warrior if I'm intervening him. And he gets intervened again. So if you're playing the comp I'm playing, you have to be really careful with not breaking sheep. So here, I usually don't run intervene if I'm near the Hpal. And I have done it a whole bunch of times, but it's just a misplay. I'm chasing here. I probably should have just hit the warrior, to be honest. like this whole time that I'm chasing. Really, really bad. Should have just swapped Warrior, and that's what I realized here. I swap Warrior, I sharpen him, and if I did that a couple seconds ago, we would have had a full go. And what I do here, which I think is really good to pat my own back, is the second they do their go, I fear the Enhancement Shaman, right? On the spear, which means that by the time that fear breaks, I intervene when that fear ends, and their go got literally nothing, and they've had to wall parry from one poly, and we're looking really good here. I spear on the DB, which is a really good trick because usually they're stacked together and they're not going to move, and it gives your mage some more freedom to move around. So I sharpen here. We're getting really good damage here. Kind of looking for our win position soon. And this is something that can happen really, really quickly. Like you can be full HP and doing well, and a shaman can just chunk you to 18%. What I do is I instantly intervene, right? And during this intervene, he's got a bop on him as well. So like it's sort of like the intervene's like the failsafe, right? Like if the bop gets purged, we have the intervene. I slow the shaman and I leap. And I think I do something silly here. I think I break the poly, but it like oh no, I just swap to the warrior, which is actually a good play. Good play here. I get disarmed. The warrior runs out, and instantly what I do is I try and hit the shaman, right? And just swapping to whoever I can hit. I'm really overextended here, and this is why like I've held my trinket the whole game. I haven't trinketed disarms because this position can always happen, right? Like I have colossal smash on me, I have a spear on me. The shaman just ascendant. They both have bloodlust. He has avatar up. It's like what else is scary than this, right? Because I held all my cooldowns, it's not as scary as you thought, right? I parry most of that damage. By the time they actually connect, their cooldowns are over, right? And I intervene the second they try to connect to my mage. And what I do here is I throw the spear down on all three of them. Um, I may have previewed this clip because I make a lot of cool plays. You know, hate me, sue me. You know, like there's nothing. I'm gonna preview this clip. It's awesome. Um, I except for that where I accidentally charge the pally and break the blind. But you know, it is what it is. Okay. So oh, one sec. I think I must have paused it twice. So we get back into the game. We're just doing the same thing, just living here. I'm disarmed, so I don't really want to be in cleave range when I'm disarmed, and I'm pretty much like hovering over intervene at any time. I get the stun here, and we're still pumping away, right? It's a pretty long game. You're gonna find if you're playing melee caster, the turbo games will go long because enhancement shamans can kind of live for a while. We get the wall again. I don't even know what wall this is. It feels like it's been up the whole time. I go and kill the grounding, which you should always do if you're playing with a Hpal and a caster. If you can, they'll usually get it as well, but it's good to have it too. I get the fear here, and on their go, and they kind of swap me for a sec. I don't actually go into B stance, D stance here because I'm not actually too worried about this go. Um, it's just kind of like a fake go, just hitting me a little bit, so I play more defensive. I get this fatty blade storm off here, and we get all their cooldowns again, right? Like this is the thing with turbo, the games go so long, and you just like have this battle of cooldowns, and it feels almost more damp. But if you see the Hpal is like 12k HP, he's running out of mana. Our Hpal is doing pretty cruisy, like I think he's got a little bit more mana, but he's not under the same amount of pressure, so he does have cooldowns to rotate through. Whereas this Hpal is literally blowing through every single cooldown possible. And during this, I'm kind of screaming that we're going to win soon, right? Just live, just live, just live. Um, and I'm playing super as defensive as possible as well, right? Eventually, they run out of buttons. Um, and oh, I thought we win here. Do we win here? No, I don't think we do actually win here, which is nuts. And during that go though, like the HPAL had to use about 10% mana, right? Because he's having to heal so much. The blind comes out, the sharpen comes out, and he falls over when that rally falls. So as you can see, very long, intense matches there, and something that like you should be really maximizing your DPS as much as possible, or you're going to fall behind considerably on mana. And as you can see here, 944k DPS. Uh, Obviously, what you tend to find is that the warrior in the melee caster will do a lot more damage because he has higher uptime, right? I'm hitting two targets the whole game. They're usually hitting one target or like 1.5 targets, because they're not really connecting the full game too, if your mage is any good. Okay, that's Turbo, and we'll switch. I think we're going to show uh, one more after this, which is a loss against Turbo. So we're jumping into the Turbo in Robodrome. This is one we lost, and I kind of want to walk through what I did wrong here. So it's against Born Good, Nalia, and Hots, JK, Purge X, right? I charge here, I slow, right? And I get my damage out. They kind of do a fake little go on me, it's not really real. And I throw the spear down on both, right? But instantly my mage is blinked with a spear up, which is unfortunate, it's not a big deal. But what you can see I've done here, like wrong, is I've kind of committed a lot of cooldowns into a wall, right? I probably should have just stopped here and intervened my mage on this go, which I think I do like a little late. Yeah, so he's at 72%. I still have intervene up. I should have been intervened here. I should have intervened my mage by now, right? We're hitting Born Good right now because it's overextended, and he used a big heal on himself, the Kyrian thing. I do a fear on the enhancement here, but I didn't look at my DRs, so the DB DR'd the fear, which the fear would have been pretty good. It might have actually gotten his trinket because they want to stay offensive. But as a result, like I get this really shitty little fear. We get the full ring here, and I disarm the enhancement out of this because I think the warrior has to sit it, but I probably should have just waited to see who got dispelled and what's called disarm that guy. So we get a little bit of a go here, but Nalia's intervened as well on the sharpen, which is really good for them. We get the Blaze Storm here, and they're on top of us, and their health isn't moving that much, But the enhancement shaman's almost out of mana, and here's what I do wrong. If you can see, it's what I pointed out in the other game, right? This enhancement has freedom. He's in Ghost Wolf, right? I am a gnome. I don't have any extra speed. I'm not running banner, so I can't like chase him, and I don't have any uptime, right? I'm literally auto attacking him. I have to burn a leap here to get to him, and even then, I've literally not moved his health. Like my DPS in this go would be like 2%, right? So this is literally 15 seconds of uptime lost, and I had to throw a intervene onto the pally, and my pally hodges the Hpal, which is really good because he has no trinket, right? But I also used the disarm by accident. Like we didn't coordinate that properly. Okay, a spear out here, and this is looking pretty good for us, right? We have a spear. The mage is doing pretty good damage, but it gets intervened, and then the whole go is gone. Like they've got grounding and intervene, which cancel our go completely. So here I'm so behind on damage because I chase that enhancement, right? So I have literally no pressure on either of these two. Okay, I throw the disarm out. He trinkets the disarm. So disarming shamans is actually pretty good, by the way. Something you should try and do. And here's a mistake from our team, right? The paladin has called for the block too late, so the mage has already been procced, and he has to block, right? If you look at my buttons, I have no stun, I have no fear, I have no disarm, and no intervene. So one thing, if you're playing with paladins or mages, you can intervene them when they block or bubble, and you intervene the shattering throw. Something at the higher level, which is important because here it would have been really good if my mage could sit this entire block. But what you can see, the shattering throw comes out, right? And we have to burn the sack as well. So now we have to play defensive, right? We have no buttons, and the shaman's just line of sight because he knows that this is our go. Nalia uses wall, right, which is good wall, fair enough. Good usage of it. And now that our go's over, right, we've literally got nothing. We have all the trinkets, which is good, right? We don't have the shaman's wall. Born Good still has his bubble, and I think he has a bop too. It's not looking too good for us. Let's just say that. I throw the fear here, which I end up breaking as well because I wanted to stay offensive. So it was kind of like an awkward thing. Like I probably should have just feared and like let him reset completely. And we spell steal the bop, I think, which is good. We get this hodge here, and Nully is quite low, right? It's looking pretty decent. No parry, not much to get out of this, and I throw the spear down, but the enhancement shaman's healing, right? The enhancement shaman throws a heal out. There's rally, and the Hpal wings and gets a bop out. Oh, sorry, a wog out. Holy shock. We get some damage here, but can you imagine, right? Like, if I hadn't chased the Shaman and I forced this amount of pressure on the Warrior instead of chasing the Shaman, then by the time we're here, maybe they wouldn't have all this stuff, right? So, still pumping away. We get the slow, but it's not looking good for us, right? We get a poly here, but like it doesn't even mean anything because we're just so far behind. They have too many offensive cooldowns and defensive cooldowns that they can just stay offensive this whole time. They chase my mage down. My mage, they eventually connect, and the mage's health, like look how quickly he's dipping, and eventually he dies. So you can sort of see like all the mistakes I made throughout that game, right? Um, I feel like at this MMR, what I kind of like have realized is that a lot of the mistakes aren't like what mistakes would be normally, right? Like if you look at this damage breakdown, I still did 428k damage, so we still met them halfway through damage, right? But their Hpal healed a lot more, not because of my Hpal not doing his job right, but mainly just because he got like some big sack healing and stuff. The enhancement shaman, sorry, wings healing. The enhancement shaman healed 200k, um, and we didn't really seem to get too much pressure out the whole game because of a decision-making mistake, right? Which is just target choice. Um, so generally, if there's something you want to drill in your head, like your goal as a warrior, and something that I think differentiates sort of like the 23, 2400 warrior to the 27, 28, you know, this is only from my experience, like knowing from what I've learned in the last like, couple months. Um, it seems to be just like realizing when you can't connect to something and swapping and just keeping your uptime and damage high, right? You can imagine how much higher my damage would have been if during that 20-second window where I was literally doing absolutely nothing, right? It's the equivalent of if they CC'd me for 20 seconds, right? If I was wailing on any of the other targets. Literally, it could have been anyone, and we might have forced a lot more cooldowns, and we might have been able to stay offensive for a lot longer. Um, One thing is like that differentiates that is just making that call, like not chasing when the targets are 50% with freedom and ghost wolf, like you're never catching them, unless you have like grip or a windwalker that can stun around the corner. uh, I think that's really the big differentiator there. If you're sort of like low glad or like high duelist. If you can consistently keep uptime and do huge damage, you will climb rating just by virtue of that, right? And there's the opposite of that too, where you don't chase at all. You swap and they just heal the other dude and like you don't get any pressure out of it. Like if you think you can chase the guy and kill him behind a pillar, you probably should, but you need to really understand the situations where you can do that and where you can't, because that's just a matter of playing a whole bunch of games. And this is a good turbo too, right? Like I think Hot's JK Purge, like they queue this, and he has a main enhancement they queue this with. I'm not sure why they were queuing his alt one, maybe for cap or something. So they're about like 150 MMR lower than they are normally because Born Good's like 2900. Um, so it's a really good team, but you can see that like one mistake just compounds throughout the whole game and it affects everything. It's very rare that you'll have like normal types of mistakes here where somebody like just doesn't do damage. Like I feel like to get to this rating, you have to do damage. You have to be good at damage, right? Which is kind of where the mistakes end up being way higher in lower rating warriors, is their damage just isn't high enough throughout the entire game. Like games just feel different when you do 400k damage and when you do 200k damage based on your comp, right? Because my comp here, the mage doesn't do that much overall damage. I have to pump, and if I'm not pumping, we have no pressure. Because the mage is we kind of like have so much pressure that a single poly, when we have that much pressure, can win us the game. So hopefully I didn't rattle on too long about that. I was going to show some more DH Warrior stuff too, which I'm thinking I've got so many clips from this push, so I'm thinking I'll release some of those throughout the week. Um, Let me know what you think. Hopefully this commentary was helpful, um, and hopefully going through the losses is helpful. I honestly think that You guys probably learn more from the stuff I do wrong and point out than the games I do good, right? Because I'm not looking at what I do badly in the games that we win as much as I am in the games that we lose. And it's not like any of these mistakes in particular really like throw us the game. Like we could have won at any point here. We just we couldn't turn it around in time, and they kept the pressure up. So um, don't look at it like, oh, because he didn't intervene they lost the game. Like it's not like that. And like the block sack issue, obviously that contributed to it. Me chasing the enhancement shaman contributed to it. Usually in a game like this, at this rating, it'll last for a couple minutes easily. Like you don't see games end in like 2 seconds as much unless they're playing some cheese. Um, and it'll be a mixture of compounding mistakes and that the fact that the enemy team takes advantage of those mistakes and plays aggressively. If we force cooldowns, first mistake, right? Like going for it again. I know I've repeated this heaps of times, so if you're done with it, just turn it off. Um, One, if I intervened earlier on that first go, we might have been able to just go offensive straight away and hit Born Good a bit harder and maybe force a block, sorry, bubble or a bigger cooldown. Um, I think if we looked at Born Good a lot more as a target, as a like because Hpal feels pretty good against that comp, he was playing really aggressively. We might have done better if we coordinated that go, the Hodge on the Hpal, didn't waste the Stormbolt, and we used some cross CC there, like I Stormbolt the enhancement and he Hodges the Hpal, that might have been good. Or if I stun the Warrior so he couldn't intervene on that go. And then if we didn't overlap the court block sack, we might have been able to live a little bit longer and play out the game. So couple huge mistakes there, but this is something you need to get in the habit of doing if you want to push rating. You need to look at your own games that you lose. You don't have to watch every single one. Like that's obviously going to be good, but I think you want to deliberately focus on a couple you lose and spend good time on them. Spend 10 minutes like I've done here and do like your own form of commentary. Um, Sort of look at what buttons you had at each time. So yeah, if you have Streamlabs OBS or like some form of OBS to capture your screen, I highly recommend that you use it because it will make you a much better player. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Um, Thanks for all the support. Take it easy.